We're here at the site of the Lindsay Agricultural Society. We are in Lindsay, Ontario, and we are getting ready to host the 170th Lindsay Exhibition. This year, our theme is Harvesting Heritage, and this is going to introduce to you some of the people that make that possible, some of the people who have shaped our history and who continue to contribute to our lasting legacy here in the community of Lindsay.
Well, my name is John Lester, and I guess I've been involved in the Lindsay Exhibition officially since about the early 1970s. My family was involved from the early 1960s. My dad came to town in 1955 as a graduate veterinarian, and his original veterinary partner was Dr. Frank Codlin, who was well known in this community. And Dr. Codlin was well established as a member of the Fair Board at that time. In fact, he was president of the fair in 1963. And then after that, he had his turn at the offices of the fair. So he was stepping off the board, and he encouraged my dad to get involved because it was good for the veterinary clinic to be supportive of the exhibition. And my dad always had a great interest in horses in particular. So in the early 1960s, my dad started to help with the Heavy Horse Committee, or the Draft Horse Committee as they call it, and eventually got on the Fair Board and became chairman of the Heavy Horses for a lot of years back at the old fairgrounds. And then eventually in 1973, my dad became president of the fair, which was a great honor for him. My mother, Betty Lester, started working with the fair in, I believe, shortly after my dad in the 1960s, a member of, at that time it was called the Ladies Committee. Later it was renamed Homecraft to be politically correct. But then they ran all the arts and crafts competitions and filled the second floor of the old grandstand building along with the Junior Arts and Crafts Committee. And she served on that committee for, I believe, close to 50 years. And I would say that for well over half of them, she was chairman, and different times she would try to give up that job. But my mother was a great organizer. And some of the ladies would say, "Oh, no, we'll help you. You just stay being president. We'll just do what you tell us we need to do." And she loved it. And she went on to be involved with the District Association of Fairs. She went on to be the president of Homecraft for all of Ontario, and then even stayed with the provincial board as one of their secretary roles for quite a few years. And it was definitely in her blood, and she had a real legacy with this fair. I remember when the showcases were built. At one time in the old grandstand building, it was determined that the ladies did not have enough secure space to display the things that were being entered, sewing, baking, crafts, and these are valuable to the people that own them. So they came up with a budget to build some new showcases, and I remember that it happened to be a cousin of mine that got the contract through the Fair Board to design and build them. They're kind of on an angle. They're still in use today. Quite a unique design for a showcase. And my mother and Millie Noakes, as volunteers, spent I don't know how many days or even weeks varnishing those new cases. I think there was about 8 of them, and they were huge. For weeks before the fair, they came in every day and they varnished those cases. I don't know how many coats. And every time I look at those cases today, I still think of my mother and Millie. There was a picture that the paper took at one time of them doing that. A lot of people watching this might think of the fair instantly as being right at the corner of Highway 7 and Angeline Street, but actually a lot of my involvement and my family's involvement was at the old fairgrounds, as we call it today, just off of Angeline Street near Colburn Street in Lindsay. Of course, when they built that particular fairgrounds way back when, it was almost outside of town. I mean, where the giant Tiger Mall is now was a livestock sale barn and was almost considered to be out in the country. One of the greatest things I think that happened many years ago at the Lindsay Exhibition was the advent of what we eventually called the Newton Wilson Pavilion. It was a major livestock barn that was built in 1969. The story behind that is that many people might still remember that there were a row of, as we called them, the old red livestock barns that were actually at the south end of the old property, on property that's currently occupied by the Ross Memorial Hospital. Those barns had seen better days, plus there was interest in the hospital needing more land for further expansion. So in the 1968-69 era, the fair had a chance to sell the land at the south end, a portion of it, and take that money that they got for that land and build a brand new livestock facility. I wish I knew today the size of it, but it was one of the biggest livestock buildings in Ontario. It held horses, cattle, sheep, swine, and it had a livestock judging ring all under one roof. And the building was built by a combination of the Beaver Lumber Company and Brazier's Construction. It was completed in 1969. Some folks remember that even on the Friday or Saturday night prior to the opening of the fair, they even had a barn dance in the brand new barn before they put any livestock in it. It was really the brainchild of Mr. Newton Wilson, who was the manager of the fair at that time. Sadly, tragedy struck because on the Monday morning of the week of the fair, before any livestock had ever been in that building, Mr. Wilson passed away suddenly. So they lost their fair manager on the Monday morning leading into the fair. The building, of course, was completed. The sad part about it was Mr. Wilson never lived to see an animal walking that building. So the Fair Board after that decided to name it in his honor, and for many years people could see the big letters on the end of it, Newton G. Wilson Pavilion. But it was at the time, one of the most respected livestock buildings in Ontario, and was quite a feat for that time to build a building of that stature. The exhibition is fortunate to have this big, beautiful property now. The problem with the old fairgrounds is that we were running out of room. Two reasons. Number one, the hospital was looking to expand more. They wanted to take over more land. And if they were going to do that, the fair was going to be a hard thing to have enough land to do it. So they had the opportunity to purchase the farm that they are on now. And interestingly enough, this farm for many, many years was farmed by my grandfather's sister and her husband. So there's a unique side connection there. And so this property has a lot of memories as well. But the old fairgrounds was just getting too crowded. And it was a big step for the fair to move out here. They didn't know how it would work. They'd always been in the center of town. People could walk to the fair, and many did, because in those days our parking was limited for people coming in. And there were a lot of people that maybe they don't like change. They didn't want to see it move. But I think it was a move that the fair was smart to make. They needed more room. They needed to expand. They needed more barn space. And so I think it's a good thing. And they have gradually grown into this property. And I think it's a wonderful thing for the future that they are now here.
Just behind me is the Agriculture Pavilion, where you'll find all of our agriculture education and awareness pieces at the Lindsay Exhibition. Jack Kyle is our chair of Ag Awareness and Education, and he and his committee put on a fantastic display every year, which includes items and animals and educational pieces for our urban visitors to understand more about agriculture. Next, you're going to meet Jack.
My name's Jack Kyle. I'm chairman of the Ag Awareness displays here at the Lindsay Exhibition, and we've got a number of agricultural exhibits focused on production type agriculture. So we've got pork, dairy, bees, honey and bees, beef cattle, and sheep and goats. And that's kind of our focus. We try and make it as educational as possible. We have display cases that we get from Durham Farm Connections that are commodity specific with lots of information. And then we have volunteers with each of the displays able to answer questions about the displays and that subject matter. And most of them have an interactive type scenario where they can do different things and use those as teaching moments. It's good to see the kids learning. That questions range from totally naive to a solid understanding, and sometimes it's not the kids, it's mom and dad that are asking the questions, or grandma and grandpa. So it's very rewarding, and it's good to educate people about what production agriculture is like, where your food comes from. So we have lots of volunteers involved with the whole ag awareness section, as we do throughout the fair. The Lindsay Exhibition and Lindsay Ag Society rely extensively on volunteers. The volunteers here with ag awareness are ones that have an interest in that particular commodity. We also have a beef display that I haven't mentioned. There's a couple of young people here today with that who are very involved in the beef industry and speak out for it. And it's a chance for them to meet the public, share some of their stories, and they enjoy the aspect of volunteering and being out in the community. I've been coming to the Lindsay Fair for likely 40 years or a little more. Started coming when we moved to Lindsay, and I'm not sure that I've missed a year in all that time. I enjoy the fair, I enjoy seeing the people, the livestock, the activities. So it's a real benchmark in the year. You know, it's third week in September, and you know, the weather often is really nice, although not always, but most of the time. And it's just nice to be out and about and seeing people. So in our displays, we've got the pork mobile or pig mobile, which comes from Ontario Pork. And there are 4 pigs in this display unit. It's a trailer complete unit that the pigs are in. 2 of the pigs are what we call market hogs, which are close to market weight, and they'll go to the abattoir, and that's where your ham and your bacon and your pork chops come from. And 2 of them are just little guys that are maybe 8-9 weeks old. So you see little ones, and then you see big ones. The lady that has rabbits is here sort of sharing her enthusiasm for rabbits. She also has an interest in goats. So we've got 3 goats here in a pen, and she can answer those questions. And then the other group that we have is sheep, and Rebecca Parker is with the sheep, and she does sheep shearing demos 3 times a day so people can see how the sheep are shorn, and she does a great talk on the sheep industry while she's busy giving the sheep a haircut. The cow, we have a dairy display. We have a cow, a heifer, which is a young female cow that hasn't had a calf, and then we have a very young calf in the display. The cow is being milked twice a day here as a demonstration so people can see how a cow is milked, and lots of education around the dairy industry. The girl that's with that display is the dairy educator for City of Kawartha Lakes, and is keen to answer questions and really good with young people. She goes into a lot of classrooms to talk about the dairy industry, and it's great to have her here with all of her knowledge and enthusiasm.
Hi, my name is Holly McGriskin and I'm the dairy educator for City of Kawartha Lakes. We are here today at the Lex and for the rest of the event, and we have our cows here to show all the kids and educate them on dairy farming in Ontario. They really love getting to meet the calves and learning when they're born and what their names are. So if you have a chance, come on and meet Matilda.
One of the challenges that they faced when they moved to this fairgrounds was the fact that the land is on a bit of a slope, starting out at the road and leading down to the river. When my uncle found out that this farm had been purchased, the farm where he grew on, his instant reaction was, "Our farm? It's one big hill." But the construction people that designed this fairgrounds did a very good job in layering it a little bit so that they could make good use of all the land here, and built some wonderful livestock barns, and brought a lot of the internal stalls, stabling from the buildings in town. So all the horse stalls, for example, that are down in the draft horse barn here were part of the old barn at the old fairgrounds. When fairs began, they were the big social event, particularly of the rural community. This was not only where farm people came together to showcase their cattle, horses, sheep, their cakes, their pies, their sewing. It was where the community gathered together. And it was considered a major event on Saturday afternoon for the people to come to the fair. In those days, a lot of the men would come dressed in a suit and tie. A lot of the ladies would wear their fancy dresses and their dress hats to the fair because it was a social event to come to the fair. And you always came to the fair to meet your neighbors and meet your friends from out of town. It was sort of like a homecoming. But of course, in the beginning, the competition started out being where people came together to showcase the best of livestock. It was used as a tool for the development of breeds and the development of, say, beef cattle and poultry. In those days, horses weren't just farm animals for some people. They were adventing into show animals, but even the hackney horses, the roadsters, the saddlebreds, they were being developed based on what was winning at the fair. Plus, we needed fairs of all levels because, of course, in Ontario, for example, or even Canada, a lot of people, their goal would be to show at the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, to be good enough and have stock good enough to go there. But you don't start by learning to go to show at the Royal. You start by your kids go to 4-H competitions. They start going to the local one-day fairs. They gradually get good enough to go to a fair like Lindsay or Simcoe or Kingston or whatever the big ones were at the time. And then eventually you've got animals good enough that you have gained the experience that you're going to end up at a major livestock exhibition, whether it be cattle, horses, and you often would hear pride in people's voices when they say, "Yep, we've got 4 cattle good enough to go. So this year, for the first time, we're going to the Royal Winter Fair." And of course, there they compete against people from all across North America.
Is one of our most involved volunteers. She is a past president, she is a current director, she is a part of various organizing committees, including the Beef and Market Livestock. She has major involvement with our 4-H in Kawartha Lakes Haliburton, and she is one of our most active and engaged when it comes to the most recent past history of the Lindsay Exhibition.
The livestock and horse competitions have been the backbone of the fair since 1854, probably. The thing that brought people together to meet and compare their animals and in a friendly competition and have them evaluated. First memories of the Lindsay Fair is a small child was walking amongst the cattle barns and looking at all the cows on display. I showed my first 4-H calf when I was 13, and that started the love affair with the fairs. I chair the beef show here and market livestock, but currently. But I also am involved with the board, and so we oversee all of the livestock competitions and horse shows, and also all the competitions that go on within the homecraft division. And our animal parts, we have to all work together because it's an ever revolving door down there. We have shows of sheep, goats, cattle, horses, chickens that all come and go, and we have to kind of coordinate all of that so they don't overrun each other. So some are coming in, some are going out. The committees all have to kind of balance that out, the use of the show ring, the use of the wash racks, and make sure that everybody is looked after. Our numbers are definitely increased greatly. We have a giant sheep show, a very large horse show. Our beef shows are some of the best in Ontario. The dairy show, for sure, one of the strongest. It might surprise people to hear that our numbers are increasing, that our entries are up. I think that the committees all work to make that possible through gaining of sponsorship, through working to make the shows bigger, to get good judges, to invite the exhibitors, make things friendly for the exhibitors, with whether it be camping or provision of straw, something like that. I think that as the shows get bigger, as the judges are better, the reputation is better, people with good animals want to come and maybe travel farther to participate. Our beef shows are a qualifier for the Supreme show at Agribition in Saskatchewan in November, which is a big feather in our cap. Our beef shows are also qualifiers for the Royal Winter Fair in Toronto for their Supreme champion competition. Those kinds of things draw people to come that might not otherwise come to our show. And then hopefully once they come again another year. So all competitions aren't about qualifying for Supremes or getting money. One of the best memories of my family growing up at the fair was Kids Day. And back in the day, Kids Day was Thursday. The public school children got the day off school. They got to come to the fair. The fair had activities that were directed to the children. And so we had dress-up costume competitions in beef and dairy calves, and sponsored by local businesses, and nice prizes for them, and brought grandparents out, and all their children's friends could come and see them show their animals. And that was one of the ways that we got some of them started into the show business.
Sometimes I wonder if we're a little sneaky when we do that, because we give kids the best dressed calf show to come to, and they start out at 2 or 3 years old coming in and dressing up their calf and coming, or we hand off the recording book to a 10 or 12-year-old and say, do this. And it doesn't take long for them to grasp that interest and to come along, and that we value them for that. And we give them programs here. Our ambassador program is huge for generating volunteers. We I can't think about the last 10 years of where we were losing an ambassador, but we're not gaining a volunteer in a big capacity in some cases. So we work hard to bring them along. We appreciate them, and we couldn't do this without them, to be honest. The volunteers we have that do come in on a regular basis, those are generational as well. There is many that have the volunteers that have their daughters or their sons come and work, and also have their grandchildren come and work, and their brothers and their sisters. It's very interconnected among all of them, and that's been happening for 170 years that we've been here. And you can look at the names on our plaques and all of that, and they repeat generation after generation of volunteers that they exhibit, they do all kinds of work here, and there's not a family, I don't think, within 50 miles in the town of Lindsay that hasn't got a name on a trophy somewhere where they've been here, done it, and they keep coming back. And we value them to no degree.
It was actually my mother's side of the family, my mother's father's sister and her husband, Wilbert and Sadie Pogue, and then later their son, Murdy, and his wife, Joyce Pogue, they farmed this property for many, many years, probably going back into the late 1800s. So it was sort of, and I don't know how many people realize that there is that connection. And I can remember a story back when money was tight for farm people. My great aunt and uncle, Wilbert and Sadie, that lived on this farm, had decided that they weren't probably going to go into the fair this year because money was a little tight. But they raised and sold potatoes. And the story that my aunt told was that just about a day before the fair opened, someone stopped by wanting to buy some potatoes, fresh potatoes off the farm. So she sold them a quantity of potatoes, and now they had the money to go into Lindsay Fair. I wonder what she would have ever thought today if she knew that the fair was on her farm. One of the gentlemen that played a key role at this fair for a long, long time was the manager from 1971 till 1984, Ralph Hodgson. And I didn't realize until I started attending the Canadian Fairs Convention after Ralph retired and I took over, I didn't realize how well respected both he and this fair were across Canada. I found out that his nickname at the convention was Mr. Fair. And I mean, you're talking about fairs that have got convention that's got representation from the Calgary Stampede, the Canadian National Exhibition, the major exhibitions, literally from coast to coast. But everybody knew Ralph. And it was because not only his enthusiasm for what he did here and what his board was doing, the involvement that he had, but also how well respected the Lindsay Exhibition was. And if people didn't know about Lindsay X, Ralph made sure that they did. And he deserves a lot of credit for the longevity, the stature that this fair held for a long, long time. I started to volunteer with the exhibition back in the early 1970s when I was going to high school. My mother was chairman of the Homecraft Committee at the time, and the ladies had worked on the International Plowing Match Committee in the ladies' tent at that time, and they had put on a fashion show. I think that was in 1971. So in 1973, and the brand new store called Zeller's County Fair had been built. It's no longer here, but it had been built. So they approached Zeller's about putting on fashion shows at the fair that were geared towards the average person and family in their clothes that would be sold at Zeller's. So they worked it all out, and they had the fashion show. Well, I was an organist. Well, they needed an organist to play for the fashion show. So that was my first official volunteer role at the fair. I think that was about 72 or 1973. And then when I became old enough, when I turned 16, I was invited to be on the fair board as what they called a junior director at that time. And I remember Gordon Mark, Brian Starr, there were others too that were on at that time and are still indirectly involved in the fair. Some of them, or their families, are. We served as junior directors, and then eventually when you got to be an adult, got elected onto the board. And when I turned, I believe, 18. and sat on the fair board for quite a few years. And then in 1984, the current manager of the fair was Mr. Ralph Hodgson, who had been here since 1971. He decided that he was going to retire, so they posted the manager's position up for grabs. And so I was very fortunate to become this manager that they selected in 1984, and I did the job for 10 years at the old fairgrounds, and I loved it. It was great. We had great people to work with. We had great volunteers. There was something that I just loved about those old buildings and the atmosphere in them. This sounds silly, but I will never forget when you walked upstairs in the main building into the homecraft area and opened the door. There was a unique, pleasant smell in there that you never had smelled anywhere else. There was just something special about those buildings, and so I did that job for 10 years and then decided to move on to something else. But it was definitely a passion. Well, yes, if you come to the fair, you might hear my voice. I'm one of the horse show announcers here at Lindsay, and after being not available on the fair weekend for a few years, they've asked me to come back, and fortunately I was available, thanking the Heavy Horse Committee for giving me that opportunity. But I've been doing that. I announced my first fair when I literally was 10 years old. I remember it well. It was Fenelon Falls. And I went on to one of the other first fairs I did was the Fenelon Falls. Then I got invited by one of the exhibitors to go and do Minden. And then the agricultural manager of the Canadian National Exhibition had a cottage in Minden, and he was at the Minden Fair. And when I was about 16 or 17 years old, he approached me and my mother and dad about me coming to announce the CNE Horse Show. And that was a huge, huge opportunity. And I did that for, I think, 5 or 6 years, and that was 19 days in a row, literally living at the CNE. I went on to announce at many, many fairs. I did work for the Demolition Derby people for 40 years, announcing demolition derbies all across the country. And this will be, I believe, my 48th year to announce the breeding horses at the Royal Winter Fair. Yes, my life, indirectly and directly, revolved around the fair, and technically still does, for a long time, because my dad was involved for so many years and served as a director for a long time and president. Then my mother was involved at the same time, and therefore, we're acknowledged at official openings and what have you as being the president or officers of the society. And particularly in my mother's role as kind of one of the main organizers of the Homecraft, I mean, that fair lived on our dining room table for many, many, many weeks every year. And we also traveled to a lot of other fairs because they believed that you couldn't have what we called barn blindness. You couldn't just look at your own fair and see what was going on. You had to watch what the others were doing. And we gained a lot of friends. We did a lot of traveling. We even traveled to fairs in Iowa and Illinois and Michigan, particularly through the horse business, but because they wanted to see, and they enjoyed the fair business. My dad, as a stepping stone from Lindsay Exhibition, was hired as the veterinarian for the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair in Toronto and served that for 28 years. And I too started to work seasonally at the Royal just during the fair, and I'm going to do that for my 48th year this year.
So the Lindsay Fair has been a really big part of my life for over 40 years. My children participated, grew up at the grounds. We volunteered here every year for the week, so it was our week's holidays. It became part of our life, and it still is, which drives us to still participate and be involved in the organization of the board and the shows that go on here. Same with Bev.
Yes. I've been involved since 1994 in the Lindsay Fair. I've met so many people, and it's been a huge part of my life for the last 30 years, but a bigger part for the last 2. And I look forward to continuing that role on my committees that I work on separately, and working with the young people that are coming up too.
We all are involved year round, but especially during September, I think everybody is very, very close and works together. We bring in our family members as volunteers. Our family members also kind of graduate onto the board. There are multi-generations on the board as directors, and I think that sort of shows the passion, the love that we have for the Lindsay Agricultural Society.
My grandchildren are more interested in the baking and the quilting and those kind of things. I know Lois's family is very high on the cattle, the beef cattle, the Herefords especially is a love for them. So we try to carry those passions that we have in our everyday life into the fair, and that's what makes us good here. That's what makes us work together, and there's a common interest, which is Lindsay Agricultural Society.
For sure, I've seen several families who the grandparents, the children, then the grandchildren have been on the board, have participated in the shows. My grandchildren are pretty small, but my little granddaughter came a couple of years ago for the very first time from the city, and just hoping that she'll get that love for the place as well. But for sure, people grow up here, and there's a bond that I think kind of sits between everyone, because we remember, well, yeah, you were the president when such and such happened, and I remember when you were the president. So it's something that's kind of we reflect on each year, I think, too.
I still stay involved with the fair in a small capacity because I have a great connection to the past, and I don't like change much, but I want the fairs to continue. I would like them to continue like they did in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but that isn't reality. So the fairs are making some changes. Entertainment has become more popular. We're seeing things now like demolition derbies, tractor pulls, of course in the old Hell Driver show, which there really aren't much anymore. But we've seen a more advent of motorsports. The music industry has changed too, because it was possible in the 70s and 80s. You could hire the top act in country music for $5,000 or $6,000. I heard of a fair this year that has hired a major country star to come in and play, a Canadian, and they're thrilled that they were able to get him for $100,000 for one night. So the entertainment industry has changed. Plus, in the agriculture side, we don't have as many livestock breeders that are concentrating on breeding livestock and developing the breeds through that. The horses as a hobby have gotten less and less. And I want to be one of the ones to try and help those divisions carry on, because I think without the horses, the cattle, the sheep, the swine, which is what a lot of people still come to see, without those, all we're going to be is a big festival. Fortunately, the carnivals, the midways, have some of them stayed strong. Fairs like Lindsay have been able to hang on to their arrangements with World's Finest Shows, one of the best in the country. But there aren't as many midways to choose from anymore. A lot of the little fairs are having trouble because the economics, even the price of fuel today, has made it very hard for small midways to survive. Plus, it now affects livestock exhibitors who travel a long time. A competitor with a 6-horse hitch probably has a semi-truck and trailer with their horses and their equipment. And if they run that from the other side of London to here, it costs goodness knows how many times more than what it did 15 years ago. So travel is getting harder for the smaller guy. The bigger outfits are doing okay. But I want to try and hang on to as many of the traditions as we can.
One of the most important pieces each year at the Lindsay Exhibition is watching the families come through the gates. Families create traditions here which brings them back every year. Doo-Doo the Clown, which is one of our favorite pieces of entertainment here at the Lindsay Exhibition, is creating his own family tradition by now introducing his son Aaron to our list of performers. We are pleased and proud to have him and his son as performers here and look forward to them building their new family tradition alongside the other families that come each year.
3, 2, 1, go!
Good afternoon, everyone. I am here on a beautiful Friday at one of my favorite places to be with one of my favorite little puppies. This is my Kenobi. We're here at the Lindsay X with the Canine Circus, having an amazing time. Not only are we here with the Canine Circus, I am back with my magic show here, and I've been coming here on and off over the past 8 years. I absolutely love it here in Lindsay. I have so many friends and so many families that come to see us year after year. I'm so happy we're here with my little puppy and all our amazing dogs here at the Canine Circus this year. We have dogs jumping over 7 feet through the air. We have dogs flying across the field. We're having a blast with all of the amazing people here in Lindsay. It is truly a magical place, not because of all these magical dogs, but because of all of the magical guests that come back year after year. There is nothing better than seeing families have an amazing time together, and that's what I see all day long here in Lindsay.
I see all of you dance at a silly 100. Everyone say 100.
Hi everyone, I'm Doo-Doo the International Clown. The kids know me from everywhere, from Netflix to everything. The adults know me from Adam Sandler's Billy Madison, and I am so thrilled to be back at the Lindsay Exhibition. I've been coming here for years, and it's truly where memories are made, because as I walked in today, the first, now that's 4 people that came up to me were all adults that said they used to come to my show here when they were kids, and they're back again, and it's just beautiful, right to the heart. It's just such a great event. I mean, I look forward to it all year. I travel all over the world performing, and I actually live in Ontario, but I do travel all over, and I look forward to this every year, and I'm just so grateful that they have me back, because I never take anything for granted. I love Lindsay. Everybody turn around. You guys are great. Everybody wave. I want to thank everybody. Have an amazing day right here.
Indian air, just to take them up. Big old Indian air for Jerry. Passing with a double.
One of the things that I think was always exciting about the old Lindsay Exhibition, Lindsay Central Exhibition, was the fact that in those days, they brought some major entertainment to their grandstand. Yes, we had the motorsports. We had the world famous Trans-Canada Hell Drivers that I understand performed there 25 consecutive years on the Wednesday night, the opening night of the fair. A lot of kids will remember the Trans-Canada Hell Drivers, the antics of Happy the Daredevil Clown. There's a lot of memories there. And then, but in the day, the fair was hiring what was at that time some of the major country stars who now are considered legends that are gone. People like Kitty Wells, Little Jimmy Dickens, Gene Shepherd, Connie Smith, the list goes on and on. Billy Walker, the Kendalls, Jeannie Seeley, Jeannie Pruitt. These were people that were on the top of the charts in country music business. And even if they weren't on the charts at the time, country music fans are very loyal. If you had hits back in the 60s, they would come and see you in the 80s and be just as glad to have you there. And we had some major grandstand shows there featuring a lot of what today are some of the legends. I'm seated now, of course, in the grandstand that's been built at the new exhibition grounds, but I can't help but sit here and remember all the great memories of the old grandstand building. At one time, some people might remember at the old fairgrounds, there was a frame building, grandstand style building, very old style. Some of the old fairs still have them. But that building got to the stage where it had seen better days, and according to my father's memory, was actually declared no longer that they could use it. Condemned, I guess was the word. So the Fair Board took it upon themselves to build a brand new cement block building. I happen to remember that it was 260 feet long, which was quite something at that time. It had a grandstand similar to this with seating on the outside. It had a double exhibit hall on the ground floor, and then there was also a second floor with 2 dining rooms and space for all the home craft exhibits, junior arts exhibit. It was a big facility. And once again, when it was built, it was a very unique and very modern building at that time. Washrooms that literally stretched from one end to the other to house the big crowds. And it was always deemed to hold about 4,000 people. And in the old days, we often had it full. One of the things that I think is very, very important with the future of fairs is the volunteers. Fairs, people must remember that fairs make most of their money 1 week of the year. And they can only employ so many people to do the jobs. It takes committees with expertise, volunteers who are willing to come and give their expertise and guidance on everything from the horses, the cattle, the sheep, the goats, whatever they're having. And there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be shared there. And it became one of their social events to come to a committee meeting for the fair. Fortunately, fairs like Lindsay still do have a good base of volunteers, but it's important to keep involving the young people because it doesn't take long till some of the old ones are gone off the scene anymore. And so I think that's one of the key things about agricultural societies running these fairs. They've got to have a good volunteer base. And if people want to help out, it's easy to criticize, but it's better to come and help.
The Lindsay Ag Society, which puts on the exhibition, is a nonprofit charitable business, and they rely on volunteers for governance. They have a board of directors. I was on the board for 6 years, I guess. And so the board sets overall governance issues and ideas. Staff provide a lot of the support, and then there's committees of volunteers for each section of the fair. And there's one for the beef cattle, one for the dairy cattle, one for the sheep, one for the goats, one for the egg products, so hay and grain and whatnot. Another one for school kids, home crafts, so all kinds of committees involved. And they're all volunteers who want to contribute and feel positive about being part of a very successful and positive event.
Speaking to the volunteers of the Lindsay Agricultural Society, I think we have a huge relationship of working, of fellowship, of stewardship for our grounds. There isn't one volunteer that comes onto our grounds that doesn't care. They're here for the purpose of building with us and being here and working among us. We are so in love with our volunteers when they come and they bring a smile. They do jobs that no one else would want to do. They fry fries, they make sandwiches, they clean out stables, they clean out barns, they paint, they cut grass. They come along and they are just a joy to be around. And that's not speaking from just the board of directors as volunteers or the committee members as volunteers. That's talking about the kids that come in to get their community hours and they are in the kitchen with aprons on having fun. And we really do try to build that kind of relationship with our volunteers at any age. And we have them at any age. You and me both, like any age.
For sure. And we are all volunteers here, I think, except for staff. It has to be, people have to realize that the fairs, the competitions, the events that go on are organized and carried out by volunteers. And volunteers can, as Bev says, come in many forms and again, have many things that they can offer to us. I think the one thing is that we like to cultivate that passion, the pride of the LAS, the heritage of the LAS, what we kind of are carrying forward as a legacy, and what can go with the next generations as the next 100 years.
Each year we invite the community to come here to the Lindsay Ag Society grounds to visit the Lindsay Exhibition and make memories here. Everything that we do here is made possible by our very generous, very community-loving, engaged volunteers. We have more than 400 volunteers who make everything that we do here possible. From cooking in the kitchen, to putting on the beef show, to helping us organize events, to making sure that everything that we as staff need are taken care of. And we honestly could not do it without them. Them, our sponsors, our vendors, again, the volunteers, and the community make everything that we do here possible. It makes it possible for us to be here 170 years later, still making memories and traditions and harvesting heritage as we move forward into the next 170 years of history at the Lindsay Agricultural Society.